This story is entitled The 100-mile-an-hour plus car chase running from killers. Well, it started out innocent enough. We were at a friend's apartment. We'd picked up a friend of mine, and we went to another friend's apartment. It must have been the weekend, as none of us had anything to do, and we all worked. So we were partying, drinking wine, doing shots, burned a stick, whatever. And we all looked at each other and said, like, well, what do we want to do tonight? Let's think of something to do. Go to the bowling alley or go shoot some pool and nothing sounded interesting. So we decided, amongst all of us voting, let's just go out and drive around and see what we can get into and find out what's going on. And this had been going on for hours and hours, so we were just bored out of our skulls. So we drove around, not a whole lot was going on. We headed back towards Baytown on I-10 East. And one of the guys, we were driving right past his house, and he said, you know what, just drop me off here. Just drop me off at the house. It's just one exit. You're off the freeway, a couple of blocks, and just drop me off at the house, and there's nothing going on. So we pulled over and dropped him off and got back on the road. And we took the exit for the ferry, Crosby Lynchburg. And just as we did, I told Kevin, he was the one that was driving. He actually had a panel van for his work, but there were no seats in it, and it was for cargo. So we had fashioned some milk crates so we could sit on them for seats, so we wouldn't have to sit on the floor. And I told him to pull over. I was like, I'm just absolutely just dog sick. And he pulled over. We opened the panel door on the van, and I just lost it on the side of the road. We were at the ferry, and I had to go down by the rocks, nearly into the drink, into the ship channel, and I lost it. Just emptied out, and it was just, my mind, my head, my body was just weak, and I was just, it just drained me, as it will. And obviously I'd had too much to drink. So finally I got enough strength to get back up to the van. I got up the rock wall to the side and got back in the van, and I pushed the milk crates out of the way, and just laid down in the floor on the van because it was kind of cool, and I didn't have enough energy to sit up and on the crates anyways. I just laid there, and so he closed the van door back up. There was left in the van was Carl, who was in the passenger seat, Sharon, who was sitting in his lap, Kevin, who was driving, and me in the back. I was on the floorboard in the back of the van. Well, they decided they were going to go across the ferry. So they took the Crosby Lynchburg, and from north to south. We pulled up on the platform and waited for the ferry, and the ferry came across. We drove up on the ferry, and then rode it across to, it was, at the time it was 134, Highway 134, to the monument. And we drove off of the platform when the ferry landed, and they pulled the chains down. and there was a light that it was on 134 when you leave the ferry, the first light you come to. Now, we were in the left-hand lane, and all of a sudden, Sharon screams out, "He's got a gun!" And the it was a station wagon parked next to us at the light, and the guy in the back seat had a shotgun pointed at her head through the window. And as he pulled the trigger, his elbow came off of the edge of the windowsill, at the edge of the car door, and the gun went up. So he missed the shot. It went over the top of the van. The second shot went through the van, on the side panel, about 6 to 8 inches over my head. And it would have hit me in my head if I'd been sitting on a milk carton. He peeled out. Kevin peeled out from the light. The station wagon started in chase, and it was on. We were going down 134, and Carl was asking him, "What did you do?" He's like, "I don't know. Maybe it's the company that he worked for or something, or he doesn't know who they are." And you could hear them in the distance, and they weren't that far behind us, and they were gaining on us. You could hear them, boom, 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 with the shotgun. And it was, we came up to the light and made a right turn and got on the freeway on 225. We were going north or west. And Kevin, he's not the swiftest of drivers, but there was no time to change at this point, and I was in no position to drive, or condition. So Kevin continued to drive, and there was nothing we could do. He was going to save us, or he was going to get us killed, one way or the other. And you could hear him going down the freeway in the middle of the morning or the middle of the night. It was pitch black. I don't even remember what time it was, but it was barren on the highway, and you could hear boom, boom. They were gaining on us. To this day, this has got to be the sharpest thing he's ever done. We were moving probably well over 100 miles an hour, running from this station wagon, and we were coming up on Ritchie Road, and Kevin was in the middle lane, and he slowed down. I said, "What are you doing?" He slowed down and let the station wagon get close enough to us, so he changed lanes and then slammed on his brakes, and the station wagon went past us, and he slid behind it, and there was one car, and he slid behind the car and took the exit and made a right turn and went under the there was a railroad trestle on Ritchie Road, and just as we turned the corner, we heard a car run into the pillar on the other side, and we drove off into the weeds. And I mean, this has only been seconds since we escaped from the killers. Now we're in the weeds in this white van, and this guy is busted up in this car. He just came off the road and drove head on into this pillar for the railroad trestle and concrete pillar, and the car's smoking. He's busted all up. He's landing on the steering wheel, and he's unconscious. So we're like, wow, what do we do? So we pulled over in the weeds, and me and Carl got out and slinked through the brush and ran across the street and got to the guy. And just as we got to the guy, he came to, but he was so busted up and bloody, and it looked like the steering wheel had hit him in the chest, and he was slumped over. And he said something that I really didn't want to hear. He said, "My God, the baby." And I said, "Oh my God, I don't want to look in the back." And as it turned out, he said, "No, the baby. I I just left my ex-wife and I had just dropped off the baby because he wasn't in the car." So we flagged down a car, which was crazy because everything that came around the corner, every headlight that came around the corner was those killers that was going to kill us. And they had turned around and was coming back. That's just how we felt. That's just the mentality because it had only been just a few minutes. So we flagged somebody down, said, "Hey, you need to call 911. We've got a accident victim here. He's in pretty bad shape." And they called Life Flight. Life Flight came. They landed in a field next to the car. We got him back. We got back to the van. We did everything we could do. Life Flight flew off and took him away. We got back in the van and took Ritchie Road, I believe, that's to the tunnel. And we went under the tunnel and came back up on the other side and went back to Kevin's apartment. And we went inside. And nobody said anything the whole time. We got home. We got in. We opened the door, closed the door. We all looked at each other and just hugged. We went and did some shots. We got drinking. We just high-fived each other that we were still alive. And then the next day we told Steve, "You're not going to believe what happened when we dropped you off." And he said, "Yeah, sure." We weren't 5 miles from his house when it started. So there you go. Be careful what you wish for.